part of doing this work and whatnot is that you need to be the light. So the best way that you can get somebody into the work is like by you leading by example. And if you're pushing this stuff onto people, that actually really fucking repels them from like it.
Hello and welcome to the Feminine as Fuck podcast. I'm your host, Monica Yates, a period and ICF certified women's life coach, and I help women to harness the power of their period and connect to their feminine flow. In these episodes, we will be talking about all things periods, hormones, confidence, health, food, money, sex, business, feminine flow, your brain, energy, and all the stuff that goes through our heads. You will walk away from each episode with new chicken nuggets and truth bombs, as I don't have a filter and I love talking about all the shit that people are thinking but too afraid to say.
Welcome back, friends. So today's podcast episode was so highly requested. And you know, I talk to my clients about this all the time and I help them through this all the time. And I often will mention it on lives, like Instagram lives and stuff, because people always ask. But I guess I need to make a podcast on it as well. So we are talking today about, firstly, I want to quickly mention that you've got until, let me look at my calendar. You've got until the 20th of March to join BABA, which is my feminine business coaching program. So if you're wanting to do that, you need to probably get on it because that might be like this fucking week, depending when this comes out. So make sure that you are on that. New York's probably already happens by the time this has been out, which would have been amazing. I'll do a recap on that later. And then the certification starts as well in a few weeks. So if you haven't joined that and you've been sitting on the fence, now is your fucking chance to send me messages or to book a discovery call in so we can chat to see if it is a good fit for you or whether you're better off waiting or doing something else or like whatever. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to, no, not first thing, I just want to jump straight in. So I haven't really like made a plan for this. I'm just gonna like flow with what comes up. But basically today we are talking about like when your partner isn't into the woo-woo and doesn't really get your stuff, and like some people ask like how to get them on board, and other people are just like, how do you navigate it? Now I'm gonna kind of go through everything, and I've got about half an hour until my client, so we'll just see where the wind takes us. So the first thing is that like my rule of thumb is that I actually don't need my partner to be like fucking pulling tarot cards with me. I need my partner to respect my things. I don't need him to be pulling tarot cards with me. So that's the most important thing I think that everyone needs to just sink into, is of like, you cannot ask somebody else to be into the same shit as you. If you want to call in somebody that does pull tarot cards with you, then that's fine. But and maybe that's like a prerequisite for you. Like you need a man that like meditates and does X, Y, and Z. That's great. But for a lot of you that are already in a relationship, like you still love the person, it's just that they're not into the stuff. Well, do you need them to be into the stuff? Like would that really turn you on? Because I know for a lot of you, you've resonated with me actually with me saying that actually does not turn me on. I don't like a guy that wants to pull tarot cards. That is actually like repelling to me. And we're all different. So you need to tune into what actually is like what feels really good in your soul and what you're really attracted towards. So what we're really asking for is we're asking for respect. I don't need him to pull tarot cards, but I need him to respect that I do that. And he's not allowed to make fun of or comments and that sort of stuff. And if he does make a comment or make fun of me or kind of like a side remark, I will tell him, not in a condescending, like bitchy way, but just like, hey, that'll make me feel good, right? Just like if I was to say something mean about his job, that wouldn't make him feel good. It's very similar. And I've actually said this to my dad before, because he's not like into this woo-woo stuff. And I like had to put my foot down one time of like, I support you, so I expect the exact same, or like don't expect my support. And sometimes you need to like you need to almost give the man like like an example of what to go off. I don't know how to say it. So like, for example, a lot of you have known my dad is very heavily into politics and all that amazing stuff. And I mean, you guys know about it. So like last year he went for an MP position, like member of parliament or something. Oh my God, I feel like I'm going to say the wrong fucking thing and then it's not going to be right. And my mom's going to be like, Monica, you never say the right things, because I never understand what he's doing. He went for something, right, where we're voting, okay? And he could have won. Anyway, and what was I going to say? Oh yeah. And so we were at the dinner table one night and I was talking about the universe or something or other, and he made some comment about the pill, and then my brother was ganging up, and I I actually just turned around to him and I said, I had to explain it to him in a way that he would understand because he wasn't getting it. And I said to him, this is my job, just like you and your climate change is your job, right? And I support you and I support climate change. So when you don't support me in the universe and whatever I'm talking about, you are insulting my job. So if you want me to support your job, you need to support my job. And that made him go, oh, like he didn't quite realize what he was doing until I basically fucking screamed at him, like not screamed, but like slammed it in his face of like, what you are doing is you are insulting me and you are insulting my job and my income and everything and my purpose. You are insulting all of that. And here am I supporting you and flying to Melbourne to support you. And that made him actually go, oh, I see what I'm doing now. So I don't like using, like, for example, I don't like using ultimatums with people ever, but I will say that for like ultimatums, that last resort. And for some people, unfortunately, they can only see shit when there's an ultimatum thrown at them. So if your partner really can't see if your partner's insulting you, it can, and you try and do all the nice things to like get around it, try and explain it to him and he still doesn't fucking see it, it might get to the point where it takes you to be like, if you do not respect me, I'm walking. And that might actually make him go, whoa, I didn't realize I was actually being so mean. And then it can open up a conversation. But unfortunately for some people, they're just so oblivious to this shit that it requires an ultimatum for them to even like open up to be available to it. But ultimatums are definitely not the first resort. They are the absolute last resort. So all I'm asking for, and all a lot of you are asking for, is respect, right? Now, what's really important with this is that if you're asking for respect, are you respecting your partner? Are you respecting their job? Or are you saying mean things to your friends about like, oh, he never works hard enough, or like, I hate his job or whatever? Like, are you disrespecting his job? And this is just not, sorry, I'm saying this now in terms of like, if you were all in a woo-woo job like me, but you're not. And even, okay, so like, for example, do you make fun of him for going to play golf, whatever, with the boys on the weekend? I don't know why I use golf as an example. Anyway, if you are, then like that's not fair, and makes sense why he will then insult you, for example, for pulling your tarot cards. So you need to respect each other's ways of getting pleasure in your life, whether it's through cooking or going out with the boys or drinking or whatnot. And because even if in your mind you're like, yeah, but going out with the boys and drinking isn't healthy, pulling tarot cards is, that's really the wrong approach to be taking, because like for him, that actually could be healthy for his soul. Like I've talked about this before of like, it's actually on my IGTV, and I can do an episode on this if you guys want, but like I drink and I drink for my soul. I actually have a rule around drinking, which I'll do another podcast episode on that. I'm gonna write this down, my rule around drinking. So don't forget. Okay, so what was I gonna say? So you also can't like, you also have to support him in his ways, even if you don't agree with them. So even if he's like, I'm going, let's say, to get drunk with the boys, even if you don't agree with that, you have to support, you don't have to, but you should be supporting it if you also want him to support, like, I'm going to go do a witch circle with the girls. Like, do you know what I mean? And I understand that some of you might go, yeah, but like alcohol's bad for your liver and like I don't like it when he's drunk and X, Y, and Z. If he's being mean to you when he's drunk, that's a different conversation to be having. But you can't say to him like, you can't go and get drunk because that's unhealthy. Because maybe it's unhealthy to be doing fucking witch circles. I don't know. Anyway, so you really need to get clear firstly on, you know, if you're asking for his support, are you fully supporting him and respecting him? And part of respect means that you don't have to agree with what he's doing. You don't have to like also want to go and do it, but you have to respect it. You have to respect it. Classic example is like, if I'm dating somebody and he's like, oh, like he's like looking at my, so let's say for example, he comes over and he's looking at all of my like crystals and like whatnot, right? He will get inquisitive. They usually do. They get inquisitive, and I explain it to them. And I do not go, don't ask questions like, why are you asking that? Like, I'm not weird, because like, I don't think I'm weird, so I don't feel the need to retaliate. I explain it to them because I'll be like, I don't get it. Like, why are there so many crystals? Like, what do crystals do? And they don't understand what crystals do. So then I'm like, well, X, Y, and Z. And I tell them about the frequency and blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, oh, okay, cool. End of story. And they're not then like, oh, I'm gonna go buy crystals, or they're not allowed to make fun of my crystals or all of my like witch stuff everywhere or like whatever. They're not allowed to make fun of it, but they also don't need to understand it. So they will often like look at it and be inquisitive about it. And sometimes like this actually happened quite a bit like end of last year of like, can you pull me a tarot card, or what's your intuition saying? They will often, like men often for me really enjoy, like they'll actually kind of get into it in terms of like, can you pull me a tarot card, or you tell me what your intuition is saying. They find it very interesting, but they're not going to go and do it themselves. So anyway, that's the respect piece. Now, the other thing is that if you're truly embodied in like this personal development world and this work and this woo-woo stuff and whatever you want to call it, then part of being really embodied in all of this is also being embodied in unconditional love for your partner. And when you unconditionally love somebody, it's just that, unconditional. And they should also be loving you unconditionally, I'm assuming. Now, what this means then is you can't be conditionally loving someone where like, I love you when you do this, but when you don't take out the rubbish, I don't love you. That's not fair. And you also can't like, not be loving somebody because they're not into the woo-woo. That's not fair. Or they're not into reading personal development books. So you're like, I want to go to Tony Robbins seminar. Do you want to come? And they're like, no, thanks. You can't then pull your love away from them or take your love away from them because they're not into it. You either unconditionally love that person with all of their wounds and not wanting to work on themselves. Oh, it's 3:33. Or you can love that person with all of their wounds. And I am somebody where I don't need a perfect man. I don't need a perfect person. My friends do not need to be perfect, X, Y, and Z, because I love them unconditionally. And of course, there are times where I'm like, oh my God, I just wish that I could help you. And like, depending on the situation, I will sometimes like drop a little like crumb. And if they pick it up, I'll roll with it. But if they don't, I leave it. I'm a very inviting, warm person now. I didn't used to be. And so people like, they know they can come to me if they want that help. But you also got to remember like your partner, they don't want you to fix them and you can't fix them. Don't try to fix your partner or be his or her therapist, because when you're trying to fix your partner, do you know what you're saying? They're not good enough. They're not perfect enough. They need to be X, Y, Z in order to be good enough for you. Like imagine if you came home and your partner, let's say for example, your partner was going to the gym or to Pilates or whatever she or he was doing in the morning and then says like, I want to like give you a body makeover, whatever, lol. I want to give you a body makeover. It'd be really fun. You should start coming to the gym with me and I'll put you on an 8-week program. Would that make you feel sexy and fit and delicious to them and attractive? No, you'd feel like a fat lard because they basically just said to you, like, you need to get fit basically. And so you would probably be feeling like, what the fuck? And so that's not going to create like any love and any sexual polarity in the relationship. So do not try and fix him or her, and do not try to be their therapist. Do not try to like say to them, you have to read this book, or, Tony Robbins talks about this. You should do this process. You should go to the therapist. You need to listen to this podcast. No, if they ask you, then tell them. Like if they ask you like, hey, what's a book that you're reading? You can tell them. Or what's a good book? You can tell them. But if you just keep saying like, you need to read this book, you should read this book, that's just like overwhelming of like, you need to fix yourself basically. And that's like not cool. And what's really interesting is that I believe so for example, last year, the guy that I was seeing, he would always ask me like, what book are you reading? I mean, obviously with my job, men get pretty inquisitive. And it's kind of nice because I feel like for a lot of men, it will open the door for them because they discover this world. And I mean, it was really good when he was asking me like, what book are you reading? And I would like then answer it. Like, let's say, for example, I was like, what's a good book I always recommend to men? Way of the Superior Man. He's very likely going to go and buy Way of the Superior Man and pick it up and read it. Like, that's amazing. So if you're wanting to drop that hint, you can say like, are you like to the guy that you're dating, are you reading any good books? And then hopefully he'll ask you as well, or to the girl that you're dating. And then you can like get some insight or kind of drop that hint. But you don't need to be telling people you should read this book or you have to read this book. Another way that you can kind of like, if you are really wanting to open your like husband's or partner's eyes, or your wife's eyes to this world, then I've actually said this to my mum before of like, and it kind of worked for a while. Watch The Secret, like the movie The Secret, watch The Secret and like have it on when dad comes home, for example. So you could like put it on documentary for you, more for you, not for him or her. And then if they sit down and watch it with you, then like they might have, their eyes might open a little bit, and you don't need to say like you should watch the documentary or you need to watch the documentary with me, but you can more just say like, hey, I'm going to watch the documentary, you're welcome to join. And that way there's no pressure. And one thing I'll really say is like, you can drop hints to your partner, but then you kind of need to be like, no pressure, like the energy of no fucking pressure, because if they feel that pressure, they're not, it's going to repel them. It's not going to like, it's not going to call them in or invite them or be enticing to them. The other thing that I wanted to mention as well is like part of doing this work and whatnot is that you need to be the light. So the best way that you can get somebody into the work is like by you leading by example. And if you're pushing this stuff onto people, that actually really fucking repels them from this world. I mentioned this in the episode Do Not Give Unsolicited Advice, which I would highly recommend that you listen to. But you know what is the most unattractive thing, and actually the thing that pushes the most people away from the personal development world is because people give unsolicited advice. They tell them they should do this or they need to or whatever, and it makes them actually fucking hate the personal development world, because these people are not leading by example. They're not being the light. They're being like kind of fucking evil by basically telling people they have to get into this world, and that's not love. That is not love at all. That's conditional love. What else did I want to say? Communication. So if he or she makes you feel stupid for, I don't know, going to the gym or reading a book, going to Tony Robbins, or actually even if you're like investing in yourself for a program or for an event and you are worried about what your partner's like thinking of you and X, Y, and Z, or maybe they've made a silly comment, it's really important that you communicate it to them. Now, obviously, some comments will be triggering to you and some won't be, but they'll kind of just be like, not cool move. Like if someone says to me, like, it's happened before where someone has said under their breath, like when they were a little bit drunk, or like, was it they were drunk? I think they were a little bit drunk, and they said under the kind of like, they let it slip and they were like, shit, after they said it, they're like, uh-oh. They let it slip of like, basically get a real job to me. Or like, you don't have a real job or something like that. Like it was basically saying that I don't have a real job. And like, that's not triggering to me anymore, but it was in the past. So if the comment is triggering, that's where you need to work on yourself. But if it's not triggering, but like also just not cool, then this is great. Because if it's triggering, you're not going to communicate properly. You're going to get really stuck in your emotions and you're going to get really like hot-headed and worked up. And you'll be very reactive, you will be very reactive to that person, not responsive. So when that person said to me, like, get a real job, basically, because it didn't trigger me, I was able to respond and not react. So I can't remember exactly what I said, but I would have said something along the lines of like, hey, I know you didn't mean to let that slip out, but I just want to let you know, like, please never say that again to me, because that wasn't very nice. So when your partner, say, makes fun of you for like casting a spell or whatever, all you need to say is like, hey, I really love you or like you, whatever situation that you're in. Hey, I really love you. And I just want to let you know, because I don't want to resent you, that when you say X, Y, and Z, actually give them the example, not just like, don't keep it blasé. You need to be specific, have clarity. When you say X, Y, and Z, it makes me feel X, Y, and Z. Not just, it pisses me off when you say X, Y, and Z, right? You actually need to explain how you feel. It makes me like, I like close off to you. It doesn't make me trust you. It makes me lose my trust in you. It makes me get resentful. It makes me get distant. And I don't want to get distant. I don't want to close my heart off to you. So I wanted to let you know that when you say that, it actually really affects me. And I know that you don't mean it in a really like awful way. I know it just kind of like slips out and you think you're making a joke, but it actually really affects me. Now, there's two sides to this. It really affects you because it really affects you because it is an insecurity of yours. If someone makes fun of my witchiness now, because it's not, I don't have that witch wound anymore like I used to, which I talk about in the Witch Room Wisdom program. So I'll put the link to that in the description. I guess around this part, I guess I'll open it again. Someone messaged me the other day about it, so I'll open it around this time. So join Witch Room Wisdom if you want to be learning all about the spells and all my witchy stuff. Anyway, like now I don't have a witch wound anymore. Like I've cleared that, it's gone. So if somebody makes fun of my witchiness, I'm just kind of like, okay. And like it doesn't actually trigger me. I understand that people can be uncomfortable with it. But in the past, it would have really triggered me. And so what's really important is that you need to work on your trigger yourself, but it's still important that you communicate. Like in a relationship, if someone was making fun of my witchiness over and over again, it would eventually build up resentment because I'd actually just be like, oh my God, shut the fuck up. Like I really don't, like, it's just, you're actually really annoying me. It would build up resentment. So it's important that from the get-go, you just share with them like this, just so you know, like this is going to cause resentment if you keep going down this path. But I also encourage you to also reflect on how is it triggering you, because that's where you need to like do work on and where you need to grow. Okay. And like just dig into. What else? I feel like, okay, so I've kind of talked about, so if you're wanting to get your partner into this world, some things that are really like, some ways to do it is you need to be like dropping hints, not like slamming it in their face. So you know what is a really good way to get them into this world is by you doing the work and by you leading by example. You know, if you were to invest in yourself, if you were to be reading books, if you were to be going to, retreats or immersions, and if you were to be like in programs, that will, what it will do is your partner will be like, wow, she or he is like really working on himself. I need to rise up too. So that will kind of encourage them to get into it, especially if they start to see a difference in you, and a positive one, obviously. They'll get inquisitive and curious and they'll start looking into it as well. So that's like a really good way to actually get them into it. The documentary example is another really good one. And then also like if they ask for book suggestions, another good one is like, hey babe, I was listening to this. If they ask you like, what were you doing today? What did you do today? You could mention, for example, oh my God, I listened to this podcast. It was so good. You might actually like want to listen to it. I'll send it to you. You don't have to, but it might be interesting. Can you see how in that it was so like, like you don't have to, but it might be interesting. And because there was zero fucking pressure, it will actually make them probably want to listen to it. And if they don't, like, oh well, you can't force them to do it, and you don't want to then have that forceful pressure on them. So that's like for kind of getting them into this world. But I really want you guys to reflect on like why you're wanting to get them into this world. If they don't get into this world, can you still love them? Because if you can't, that's fine, but that's not unconditional love, that's conditional love, and they're not the one for you. And also like reflecting on, are you needing them to get into this world, or are you just needing them to do something else? Like example, are you just needing them to communicate better? Are you just needing them to respect you more? Are you just needing them to tell you when they're feeling really stressed and they don't even know how to communicate? So like, for example, I don't need someone that's in this world, but I said this to my friends before, all I need is for him to go, oh my God, I actually, like, I don't even know what I'm trying to communicate. I'm sorry, I'm feeling super overwhelmed. And all I need is that, because then I can just like sit on his lap and like calm him down and not ask him again and again and again, but just know that like it's totally fine, because when he feels safe, he can then communicate. And you got to remember that like this stuff can be really hard for men because they have been so suppressed. So much shame is in them for emotions and communicating too much and feeling too much, that it can take them a while to really open up. And safety is important for us as women, but it's so important for men as well. Like safety is important for us to open up sexually, but safety is super important for men to also open up, especially like any ex-military men, really, like, that's a whole other kettle of fish. And that's really, really important for them to also be able to open up and know that you're not going anywhere, because that's a big fear of theirs, that like you're gonna leave, because that's a very common thing that happens, or you're gonna cheat, or you're not gonna be able to deal with them. So the unconditional love is even more vital for those men that have had a military background. Okay, I'm going to leave it there, guys. I hope that was helpful for you. And yeah, so check out Baba if you are a businesswoman and you're wanting to do that, because it's really important. Actually, go back and listen to episode 3, I think it is, Are You Blocked and Stuck? Because I talk a little bit about how your energetic blocks affect you in business. That's a really good one to listen to. And then if any of you guys have questions, I just want to please ask, can you please first make sure that you have gone through like all of the podcast titles, because, or like you've searched in the bar at the top of my podcast, like Marina or something, because a lot of you send me questions about like boundaries or certain hormonal birth control, or like, you know, energetic blocks or PMS. And I've done a lot of podcast episodes, and my DMs get like pretty clogged, and it's quite hard when I get all these questions that I've answered in podcasts. So please make sure that you are looking at my podcast before you DM me. I'm so happy to answer your questions via DM. I just do ask that you make sure that you've looked on my blog and that you've looked on my Instagram and then also my podcast to see whether I've answered the question, because also I will answer the question, like your question, in a lot more depth on a podcast than like in a quick Instagram DM. So I hope you can respect that. Oh yeah, and if you are a male, or you've got a male in your life that you know that wants coaching, please let me know. If you don't know, I do take male clients. I love my male clients, and I've got a space for a one-on-one male client. So if that is you or somebody that you know, please send them my way, or please slide into my DMs, because I want you to be able to experience more joy and pleasure in your life. Okay, I'm gonna love you and leave you all, and I'll talk to you soon.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you got lots of chicken nuggets out of today's episode. I would be really, really grateful if you'd be able to leave me a review and a star rating that you think is appropriate, hopefully 5. And if you could share this podcast so that I can help more women live a life of flow and ease, I would be so fucking grateful. Make sure you tag me in it on Instagram so I can personally thank you, because I know so many of my clients have found me literally because their friends have posted about my podcast on their Instagram story. And I just want to help as many women as possible. So by you sharing it, I would be so fucking grateful, and I'm sure your friends would be too. If you do want to welcome me, please do check out my website for all those details. And of course, you can DM me on Instagram with any other questions. If you have any podcast things you want me to talk about, any ideas, any feedback, I am always open to it. And I always love hearing what you guys have to say. So please don't hesitate about that either. I will catch you on the flip side. Have an amazing day or night wherever you are.